Alright guys, welcome back to episode 9 of my KD Clinic, and this is going to be episode 5 of my my top 10 games, first person shooter games that I've played. And this is quite a long commentary, so in 6th place I was torn between Doom 3 and Portal. So first of all I'm going to discuss Doom 3. And Doom 3 in my opinion was an absolutely brilliant game that it took me about a year to finish. It was probably the longest campaign game ever made. It just went on, apart from maybe the original Half-Life was a long one. I actually never finished that, but I did finish the Doom game, and it is probably the longest campaign ever. And one thing I loved about this was the detail in this game. Again, it kind of, for its time, in my opinion, it was like Black Ops detail-wise. The detail was astonishing. And one thing I really vividly remember was the guns in it. And like the 3 guns that are coming to mind right now was the pistol, the first was one of the SMG, and the shotgun. The thing about those guns was they had a very slow reload and rate of fire. So and the sounds of them. So for example, the shotgun was kind of this freaky, odd, weird looking shape. And it would shoot, and then you had to wait a second before you could shoot again. And in this kind of game, what happened was it was the same as the original Dooms, but it was kind of just brought into modern times. You had all these kind of bad guys, and I think it was Mars you're on. So you're on Mars basically. You had all these bad guys coming up, and they were sneaking up on you and killing everyone and getting into people's heads. And the kind of these skulls were going around the place, and they were getting into people's heads and turning them into bad guys and that kind of stuff. And your job was to find the artifact and destroy it. And yeah, I just remember the one thing was the graphics on it, and it had such a huge gameplay. It single player campaign. It just went on forever. It was unique in that way. And now I'm trying to think, am I thinking of Doom or thinking of Quake 4? Oh my god, am I getting... No, I am. I got this game at the same time as Quake 4, and Quake 4 was a kind of short campaign. And no, I'm on the right game here. Quake 4 had different guns. It was kind of shorter. I didn't quite enjoy it, but one thing, actually, I'm going to bring Quake 4 in this as well. This is going to be a 3-game commentary. Quake 4, I remember in that game what happened was you actually got turned into a robot. You could capture somebody's robot and turn into them, but before they could actually assimilate your brain into their collective, a bit like the Borg in Star Trek, before they put your brain into their kind of main computer, like all these chips and all that jazz, what happened was they you escaped, or you got rescued. So you were like this new, more powerful human robot to fight them off. And that game was great as well in its graphics. It was kind of on par with Doom 3, but what really got me with Doom 3 was the flashlight. There's loads of these kind of very dark, sneaky corners in the game, and you can only use your flashlight separately to your gun. So if you could imagine your flashlight was a separate gun, so you had to switch between your flashlight and your gun in these dark places. So what happened is you go into a tunnel, like this big tunnel or this kind of corridor, and all of a sudden the power would go, and you pull out your flashlight, and this flashlight gave you a nice detailed beam of just what you're looking at, just in front of you. So you couldn't see anything around you. And then what happened was there'd be a noise behind. Let's say a panel would fall off a wall, and you'd switch getting ready to kill this bad guy, and it scared the shite out of you. It was such a scary game. You could only play half an hour of it at a time. It was that bad. Then you had to get off, take a break, and go back to it. I found it was a very, very jumpy, scary game. And they have all these sounds coming in the background and things falling off walls where you'd expect a bad guy to jump out, and you'd switch to your let's say machine gun, and you couldn't see anything. You see this black, and you'd shoot for a second, and the bullet would light up the chamber, and you'd actually see something, and you say, oh, it's not a bad guy, and then you know, put your gun away, you take out a flashlight, you turn around, and next you know, you just see this guy standing behind you, scaring the absolute shit out of you, and you put your flashlight away, you take back out your machine gun or your shotgun, and you're shooting at him, and it was a very, very jumpy game, and a game that's well worth to be played. I recommend you download it or play it. And one thing I really enjoyed about it, it stuck to the ending of the Doom. The original Dooms that happened was there'd be this. Well, actually, no. The original Doom was you had to shoot these rockets through this kind of hole in the wall, and you get so many rockets you killed the guy. But then Doom kind of moved on to getting this kind of super gun, and you'd use a super gun to kill this real kind of tall, like a tall bull. He kind of these horns in his head, and that is one thing that the game went into, and they actually made a Doom film, and that Doom film is exactly the same as the Doom 3 game, which I loved about the film. The guns were the same, the storyline was the same, the bad guys were the same, and there's actually a gameplay sequence in that where you see the Doom 3 gameplay in the game, in the film, which I thought was excellently done. And the reason why I think the Doom 3, which actually got the Doom film, which got bad reviews, is such an excellent film, and I think everyone should go and watch it and get an experience of the game as well. But that's the end of that. What I'm going to go on to now for the next game is one that you get with the Half-Life 2. It's called Portal. And Portal starts off as you're kind of this human, and you're being tested in this facility, and you're going to, I think, 15 zones. And you have a gun where what happens is it shoots portals on elements. So you could make a portal, a go-to portal. Let's say an entrance portal and an outlet portal. And on these portals, you could move past obstacles on the map. And as you could guess, it moved on tricker and tricker. It got harder in each level, and you always had this computer kind of talking to you, and it was talking to you about to take some cake. You're going to get cake if you win it, or something like that. And I just want to go back onto the gameplay here. I got this lovely 3 or 4 man spray here where these guys are capturing the flag. And one thing I dislike about Black Ops is the time it takes. No, wait, no, it's coming up further on in the game. The time it takes for your kill streaks to come up. I'm going to get a gunship. But I'm going to get a gunship by the time I should only get my Blackbird. So the Blackbird comes up and I'm like, oh yeah, I got a Blackbird. And I look and I can't use my Blackbird because I've actually got a gunship up. It hasn't even come up with the Huey yet. But that's coming on now in a couple of seconds, so keep your eye out for that. But back to Portal. What happens is, at the end of the game, it's like, oh, thank you for cooperating, and if you could just stay in this converter and converter, I can't say the word, conveyor belt. You're on this belt anyway, and it's going into this kind of lava pool where it's going to incinerate you. And it's like telling you, just stay here, and you, if you look, you can see this gap on the roof, and you say, geez, could I portal there? And you actually portal up there, and you're saying, wow, have I just bet the game? And what you're actually thinking that you're after beating the game. And it's the first game that really psychologically gets into your head, and you think you're beating the game, but you're actually playing into the game. You're doing what the game wants you to do, and that was kind of the first time that happened in a game ever for me. That I felt that I was doing better than the game, or I was playing a story mode that was secretly put in the game. And that really got into my head. I think it was an excellent game to play, and it was always talking about this cake, and it's gonna kill you. And first of all, it's like basically getting 2 games in one. You've got a game where you got the first game, which is just you problem solving, fixing all these problems that the game is on. Fixing all these problems, getting by these obstacles that the game was given you. The game was given in front of you, and that was the first part of the game. The second part of the game was when you escaped and you were roaming free in this facility, trying to figure out how you destroy this computer, how to get free. And it's all talking about this cake, and you can see that you're not the first person actually to escape. There are bodies, skeletons in some places, and there's writing on the wall talking about don't listen, don't go to the cake, don't take the cake, and don't listen to her, and all this kind of stuff. And it was a real starter for kind of psychological games. It's the only game of its type, now that I think of it, that I've ever played that really made you think that you were doing better than the game, and that you were doing a section of the game that was I can't really explain it. It's a game that has to be played to experience, but it's an excellent game. It's a very cheap game as well. It was you probably get it for free on some websites. But so that's not Quake 3, sorry. That was Doom 3, Quake 4, and Portal. And actually, in the end of Portal was a really nice thing that had the computer singing a song about cake and about you, and I really think that was a very good game. But yeah, let me know what you think of those games, guys. That's 3 games in one commentary. If you enjoyed them or not, this commentary's getting kind of old, so I'm going to say kind of long. So I'm going to say bye bye, guys, and let me know what you think of this series.